there just needs to be a leader in this space. At the moment, I can't really see a leader in the space. There's no law firm I can point to and say, these guys are absolutely paving the way in terms of in-house development and providing something of tangible value to their end client. The thing with fixed fee is that profit margin keeps getting squeezed because I'm not the only law firm using AI. That next law firm is using AI as well. They're saying they can do that contract review in 5 hours instead of 10. But you're saying it's going to take you 6 hours. I'm going to go to the 5-hour one. Law firms are getting bombarded by legal texts. Oh, please, sir, can you pilot my tool? Can you pilot my tool? And there's tons and tons of tools out there. It's not just Harvey, Legora, and Thomson Reuters products. There are loads. And law firms they've got something called pilot fatigue. So they're just so bored to death and tired of piloting these tools. And the pilots last up to 3 months.
People, every technology has automated something boring or physical before. This time AI is coming for thinking, judgment, or maybe even for understanding in few years. Are we being replaced or augmented here?
I think for now we're being augmented for sure. Replacement, there's various other factors to think about. I think it's easy to overinflate the importance or the role AI is currently playing in doing what humans ordinarily do. If we think about AI is just predicting the next word in the sequence for now. There are some models that apply a bit of reasoning, but there are various other aspects to human intellect, such as gut feeling or instinct and that sort of thing that AI doesn't account for right now. So I would say right now it's augmenting rather than replacing.
Okay, before we jump into AI, can you tell me how law firms operate on daily basis? Imagine I have not set foot in one. How they make money?
Yeah, just a quick overview of law firms then. So professional services, what they're providing is knowledge. What they do, if there's one thing that they solve, is limiting risk for their client. That's the thing that they're selling. And they sell that in many different ways, whether that's through transactional contracts, whether that's through litigation, whether that's through counsel advice. There are various ways in which lawyers do that, but it's very sort of personal. It's human to human, and the tangible output, the product, is written. It's usually written advice, some sort of written record of that advice. And the way it works is, I'm sure you've used lawyers before, but if you want to instruct a lawyer, you tell them what your problem is. They tell you what their hourly rate is. You agree that hourly rate, and then they sort of go off and sort of do work on it, and they'll provide you the advice. And then it's up to you and how you sort of act on that. What we're seeing more and more of now is, and this is not, I mean, this is even before we go into artificial intelligence, is the billable hour is shifting from hourly rate to fixed fee work. So a lot of what legal work is can be commoditized. It can be sort of, look, I've got this problem. Based on my years of experience as a lawyer, I know roughly it's going to take me 10 hours to do. Therefore, I'm going to charge a fixed fee amount of 12 hours. And then I stick to that. So if I do it more efficiently, I still charge a fixed fee. If I go over that, then I take the hit on that.
No, like industry is still operating on billable hour model, right? And
mainly, yeah.
What is billable hour? Like finding an address or drinking coffee, talking about the case, is that billable?
It can be billable because it depends what you're talking about over that coffee. But if you're talking about stuff that doesn't sort of directly relate to the case, then I'm sure your client's going to have an issue with paying for that. But yeah, generally the rule is, and always has been, anytime I'm sort of spending with you as my client, that's generally chargeable. Now, it's up to the lawyer's discretion whether they actually charge the client for that coffee, half an hour coffee, or the half an hour call that they had with them. But what you've got to understand is lawyers, especially in private practice, have targets to hit. They've got 100% hours in a day. They usually have a target of about achieving at least 75% utilization is what they call it. So this is how much time you actually spend in a day that's directly attributable and billable to a client. 75%. The remaining 25% is all business development, matter opening, closing, admin, sending engagement letters out, that sort of stuff. That's generally not chargeable.
And how does a junior spend a day in a firm? Fresh graduate who just got hired, like due diligence, contract building, spell check.
There's a pyramid system in law firms. So you have the most senior partner in your team, and then underneath the partner, you usually have someone like a legal director. Under a legal director, you have a senior associate, then you'll have an associate, and then you have a trainee. So it's a pyramid structure. And the reason why it's pyramid structure, and the reason why you go through 3 years at university plus a year or two doing your legal practice course, is because theory tends to be very different to practice. So the LPC, the legal practice course, is generally a bridge between theory and what the junior lawyer does on a day-to-day basis for clients. And that's sort of stuff that you don't get taught at university. It's something that you learn on the job. So you'll develop good foundational understanding when you're doing your 1 or 2 year course. But really, you're actually learning what you know as a lawyer when you're actually live in real time on the matter, learning on the job. So you're learning through the senior lawyers that are supervising you, whether that's directly the partner or sort of legal director or senior associate. And there's a clear structure on how that learning happens. And it's not, I don't really know many junior lawyers who sort of do wider reading around a particular matter. Yes, they'll sort of do enough to sort of learn, know enough about what they need to do on that job. But everything you learn and the experience you acquire is through actively sort of you having to go at something. It's show and tell. The senior solicitor will sort of say, look, this is how I would go through it. Now I want you to go away and do it. Then the next step, this is how I do it, go away and do it. And each time the senior supervising solicitor is sort of redlining and sort of saying, no, you haven't done this quite correct. This is what I would change. These are the things you need to look out for. So there's quite a steep learning curve initially, but then you become a specialist in your area, your line of work.
Okay, so what's the playbook? It seems like the knowledge does not sit with the senior or legal director. It is quite divided into hierarchy.
I think the more time you spend practicing, in practice, especially in large law firms, what they want you to do is specialize, develop a specialism very quickly. When I was working in-house, it was the opposite. It was become a generalist, turn your hand to everything, but know enough about everything, high level, to then sort of know how to instruct external lawyers to do that, to bring in the specialism and do that job properly. Whereas now in private practice, you are the specialist that people are hiring to do a good job on something. So you're generally focusing on one area of work. Now, when you start off as a trainee solicitor, the way it works is it's a 2-year training course. It's only at the end of that and successful completion of that you then become a qualified solicitor. Up until then, you're training. You generally do 6 months stints in some of the practice groups within a law firm. So you'll have a high level of understanding of each of those 4 practice groups. Then you qualify into a particular team, whether it's commercial, whether it's corporate, whether it's employment, banking and finance, whatever it may be. And then you develop a particular niche within that. So take my area of specialism. So I was a technology lawyer. So I started off as a generalist. I was European legal counsel for an American company. And then I became a technology lawyer and I focused on technology. But even within technology law, technology is such a wide term. So it's such a broad term. Are you talking contentious work? Are you talking litigation? Are you talking transactional work? Are you talking IP? Are you talking outsourcing? These are all areas of specialism. So it's up to you as a junior lawyer what area of specialism you want to actually focus on and develop. So as you sort of grow in the career, you may develop a couple of specialisms, intellectual property and data protection, or outsourcing and AI, or something like that. But you'll that comes a bit later on after you've spent a few years practicing a particular area and sort of developing your craft.
Okay, you have mentioned tech-related stuff. So in legal tech, what is wave one versus wave two? I believe like wave one was a digital transformation and wave two is AI transformation.
So are we talking about legal tech specifically?
Yes, legal tech.
People define it in different ways. The way I define it is wave one is all about just touching and feeling AI, getting a feel for what it is. What actually is AI? What can it do? Is it text output that I'm looking for? Is it image output? What is it? So wave one, I think we're at the end of wave one, at the start of wave two. Wave one is all about giving lawyers generic platforms, whether they're wrapper applications. So it could be wrapper applications. So just taking a LLM and putting a legal UI, UX on top of it and saying, look, you can do a bit of contract drafting with this. You can do contract review with this. You can do produce reports at the back of it. You can do summarization, all that sort of stuff. It's lawyers playing with generic tools. But one thing we know is lawyers don't, especially private practice lawyers, don't operate in a generic way. They have specific workflows that they execute on a day-to-day basis. So if it's reviewing a services agreement, it's a case of understanding the context of the client, the sector they operate in, what they're trying to achieve with the contract, like why are they putting the contract in place, what's it for, beyond the legals, what commercial elements what milestones do they want to hit, and then all the way through to actually signing and helping them conclude the contract, to then giving them some sort of cheat sheet on what they need to know about the contract. So how can I terminate? What notice period do I need to get? How much are they going to pay me? When does it start, end, that sort of thing. That's a whole end-to-end workflow. We're now entering wave two of legal tech, which is all about specialization and focusing on certain workflows. That's point one. There's a second deeper layer to it. And this is what I'm seeing day in, day out. So law firms are getting bombarded by legal techs. Oh, please, sir, can you pilot my tool? Can you pilot my tool? And there's tons and tons of tools out there. It's not just Harvey, Legora, and Thomson Reuters products. There are loads. And law firms they've got something called pilot fatigue. So they're just so bored to death and tired of piloting these tools. And the pilots last up to 3 months. And it's usually the commercial team or the corporate team that are sat there testing these tools, in addition to doing their day jobs as well, non-billable time, come back to the first point, saying whether it's good or not. And we're moving away from that. And the more sophisticated law firms are focusing more on not just internal efficiency and how we make that lawyer more efficient and potentially the matter more profitable. It's now turning to how do we generate revenue? This is the second wave. How do we generate revenue using AI? And we're right at the start of that. And the way law firms in particular are looking at it is by taking each workflow at a time, honing in on that, executing that, having a quick AI win rather than let's just chuck AI at it generically and give it to lawyers and see how they use it. What we've seen is, please feel free to stop me because I can go on and on about this. What we've seen is initially when these generic tools were rolled out, they had really low adoption rates. It's because lawyers they're not used to using tech in this way. They're not really used to working more efficiently on a matter because they're not incentivized to work more efficiently. They're charged by the hourly rate. So it's in their interest to sort of, in theory, bill as much as they can, but there are certain sort of rules around that. But now they're sort of saying, work more efficiently, use AI. It's sort of it's not something they're naturally used to doing. So there's a bit of a learning curve that went on in phase one, and it's still going on with a lot of lawyers on, look, this is how you use it. This is how you can be more efficient. But we're seeing that the strategy is shifting. Like we've got a whole bunch of legal tech conferences coming up. The center theme around all of these is now, okay, we've bought these tools, difficult to measure return on investment. But actually, now we want to generate revenue off the back of it. That's going to be the focus for the next, I think, at least the next 3 years.
No, I know, like during wave one, legal tech spent decent money and it all flopped even. Like even the in-house 95% of the trial failed, but they have spent really good money on wave one. And yeah. Okay, so you mentioned billable thing. Billable hours are going to be reduced from 20 to 3 or 4 maybe, but you can still bill for 20 hours on basis of productivity.
You shouldn't. It depends how you're billing. So if you're billing on an hourly rate, you can only bill the hours that you've worked on it. So if AI has enabled you to go from 20 hours to 4 hours, you should bill the 4 hours. Now, what we're seeing is the more sophisticated clients, corporate clients especially, are moving from the hourly rate, as I mentioned, to fixed fee. So they know that whether you go to the top 10 firms or the sort of the next 10 firms, the output's going to be roughly the same. The quality of output is roughly going to be the same. So if you're not going to give me the fixed fee, this firm will. And they tend to shop around with who they go to. So if you're charging on a fixed fee basis, then it doesn't really matter how long you spend on the file. It's in your interest as a lawyer to get it done as efficiently as you can using AI, but because you can still charge that same amount. But the thing with fixed fee is that profit margin keeps getting squeezed because I'm not the only law firm using AI. That next law firm is using AI as well. They're saying they can do that contract review in 5 hours instead of 10. But you're saying it's going to take you 6 hours. I'm going to go to the 5-hour one.
No, I think AI has leveled the field. And okay, there is an interesting problem with the AI legal sector. That is Groundhog Day problem. What's that?
What's that, sorry?
Groundhog Day problem.
With
the legal, yeah, they keep doing the repetitive stuff again and again. Is that to increase the bill?
They've not known any different. It's all manual work. If we go, we don't even have to go that far back. Let's go back to 2024. Prior to 2024, it was all reactive work. So a client's got an issue. You as a lawyer, you're essentially a firefighter. You're putting out the fire, you're advising on it. I would say it's more firefighting than proactive stuff that lawyers typically do. And it will vary depending on practice group. But it comes to one particular lawyer because that lawyer's got the relationship with that client. And it's all being relationship led. So even if that lawyer charges slightly more than the next firm, because I've got a relationship with that lawyer and they understand my sector and they've been learning about my company for the last 5 years, I'm going to keep going back to that lawyer. But the way that lawyer works is the same as any other law firm. I have information in my mind as a lawyer. I've got experiences in my mind. I've got knowledge within my mind that I've accumulated over a number of years. I've passed some of that on to my team as a part of that whole process that I described, going from trainee to associate to a senior lawyer. So now they're able to do that matter potentially as efficiently as me, but it's still sort of that hierarchical thing. A matter comes in, the really complex stuff I'll deal with. The less complex stuff that I know my junior lawyers can do, they'll deal with. But it's hourly rate, manual, and that lawyer, the partner will know roughly how long that matter takes to do.
So let's suppose we have crossed and AI is doing the grunt work now. How junior lawyers will be trained? As you mentioned before, like there is a hierarchy and training.
Yeah, there's going to be a knowledge gap.
Oops.
So what I think is going to happen is we're going to go from pyramid that we mentioned to a flatter structure. And what I mean by that is now it's not going to be the partner relying on a team of junior lawyers to do work. It'll just be maybe one partner and an AI tool.
Oops.
Because it's the AI tool that does what the junior lawyers do. So then if I, as a partner, I'm using a quick plug to Casey here, using Casey to do automate compliance work. Previously, I would have used 3 lawyers to do a GDPR audit for my client. But now I will click run audit. It will go away, find out what the current law is. what's coming down the line. It will then produce a checklist of what it needs to see from the client, directly contact the client to say, I need to see who your data protection officer is, where they're sat, what your privacy policy is, et cetera, et cetera. And it will automatically extract that data and do an impact assessment and produce an exec summary to sort of say, these are the gaps in your compliance and this is what you need to do to plug them. That was all done by individual lawyers, and then it was all put together manually by a senior solicitor and then given to the client. Something that would have taken 2-3 weeks to do can now be done in an hour.
No, but how juniors will get trained?
But this is what I'm saying. So it's who's then training the junior lawyers? Who's doing the whole, you've got this wrong, this is how we sort of draft it and change it, these are the things you look at. That partner will actually have to take time out of their day, maybe an hour out of the day as a learning hour for their junior solicitors. But what's the incentive of me as a lawyer, senior lawyer doing that? My only goal is to bill and generate as much revenue as I can for me and my team. I've got even less incentive to train my junior lawyers. So there is a bit of a knowledge gap now. And I think we're going to have a whole bunch of junior lawyers coming into the profession and a whole bunch of sort of top heavy experienced lawyers, but there's going to be very little in between. It's going to be quite thin. Big opportunity for AI training and educating junior lawyers.
Okay, what do you think about AI giants like OpenAI or Anthropic and versus vertical builders like us? Who would own the real value in 10 years?
In legal.
In legal or in general, there was internet, then apps came, and the apps builder or these companies, they became so much big. Okay, all this Meta and Uber and everything. And when this two, where will be the real value, with the vertical builders or the frontier model?
So let me talk about legal specifically. I wouldn't want to talk about other sectors. I think you'll have a whole raft of comments in your podcast if I do. But
go ahead, no worries.
There is nervousness right now around using generic AI. So we're talking sort of frontier models like ChatGPT and Claude. Even though Claude have taken phenomenal steps to hire all these sort of top experts to sort of train their models and have launched Claude Legal, etc. And it genuinely does an okay job. But there's so much I've heard from lawyers that, like, they can tell straight away when it's drafted by AI, and there's so many gaps and nuances that it hasn't plugged. That doesn't mean to say it's not going to plug it in 10 years' time or even sooner, but they are still generic. There's, how we were talking about augmentation or replacement earlier. There have been several layers to the human intellect that's currently ahead of AI, and there's like a gap in that sort of understanding. Similarly, between generic platforms and vertical solutions, there's that gap which vertical solutions plug that generic platforms don't currently plug. And I think the reason why they don't potentially currently plug is because they are sort of mass market. They want to sort of capture the whole market. And then in doing so, you're going to lose the nuances that relate to specific workflows. Like if I was OpenAI, why do I want to go after automating compliance workflows? It's such a small part. The whole sector is only probably worth about 20 billion globally. Why do I want to go after that? It's not big enough for me. So vertical solutions aim to capture not only the end-to-end workflow, but the additional nuances and things that are done on the ground that are overlooked by generic platforms. And I think that is ultimately going to take the lead in sort of solving specific problems or specific workflows going forward.
Now, where do you draw the line between a vertical system versus a thin wrapper that you mentioned before, like a database with a fancy form on top of that?
Yeah, it's just, you have wrap applications.
Yeah.
One LLM, maybe 3 LLMs with a legal UI, UX on top of it. Vertical is more sort of
So integration, workflow, proprietary data,
it,
custom flows.
all of that. So I think the biggest thing there is probably proprietary data. So it's one thing that law firms will sort of never do is give their data to large language models, OpenAI or Claude or anything like that, because that is their years of USP and IP gone down the pan if they do that. What's happening right now, and this is an interesting point actually, there are law firms that are adopting generic solutions that are built on one or two sort of LLMs. What that means is that it's eroding their USP. So the USP and the IP that they've built up over a number of years, it's slowly being eroded because law firm A, their output is the same as law firm B because they're both using the same tool. This is where the vertical products come in, because now we've got it's capturing proprietary data, it's locked within the law firm. The data is not sort of really leaving, it's going outside that wall garden. And it's enabling law firms to offer that to their clients in a scalable way and in a precise way and with the lawyer in the loop. One thing that people forget is, oh, we've got AI, we're going to use Claude Legal, but as it switched up, we've got Claude Legal, but that doesn't, that's not how, that doesn't mean that corporate clients are going to use Claude Legal. I still want to go to my law firm because I want them to stand behind the advice. I want their insurance insuring me in the event that the advice is wrong or something goes wrong. That's why that's why I think people will carry on going to lawyers because they have that professional indemnity insurance backing them in case any advice is wrong.
Yeah, again, if a law firm is using, let's say, a vertical system and there is a mistake, then law firm would be responsible, right? And if I'm directly using that, becomes a problem for me. Okay, so everybody is shipping agents right now. And if agent is working over 30 minutes or over an hour, it becomes a coin flip problem. So can we, like this data-driven industries like legal consulting or this matters, this is very sensitive. Can it get to that point where we can use these agents confidently?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trust that needs to be built up for sure. At the moment, I don't know anyone that uses AI blindly other than the lawyers in the US who do and are being found out. So you heard about the case where...
I think there are 1,500 cases globally with fake citation. Even there are a few dozen in UK as well.
Yeah, but there's some prominent examples of where it's like gone stupidly wrong. And that's because the lawyer didn't really sort of vet the output. That sort of, all the sort of public stories around that is giving lawyers a lot of nervousness, but also they have firsthand seen the output. And specialists in that area, they can quickly sort of, people can recognize when something is AI drafted because there are still gaps. If you're a specialist, you know how to draft, say, a liability clause, and the way AI drafts it is going to be very generically. The way you potentially draft it is going to be aligned to case law and the latest case law. So you've adjusted your drafting to account for that. I don't think AI adapts that dynamically, or if it does, me as the end lawyer, I don't have the confidence to know that the AI has adapted to that to then say, yeah, I'm going to rely on the output. I'm still going to be checking the output. Will we get to a place where lawyers become more and more confident? Yes, I think we will. And I see it with our product. So when we first started, the shaky hands, nervousness, but then we were sort of very early on, we were hitting sort of accuracy rates of around 70-75%. Not fantastic, not rubbish either. We gradually fine-tuned and increased that to 80%, 85%, over 90%, 95%. And we took the lawyers on that journey, and it's a trust thing. Now, as a result of that trust and taking them on that journey, they're able to rely on it. It ultimately boils down to how much time is it saving me as a lawyer? Like when I check the output, I'm only checking one or two things. If that's correct, then yeah, I trust it. I can now sort of run an agentic workflow on it, and I'm more likely to rely on it. But I would say, see, me and you talking about agents is very different to a normal lawyer talk about agents because we'll perhaps have a deeper understanding of what agents can do and what the outcome could be. The sort of the ordinary lawyer may not necessarily sort of understand that, and therefore that's going to introduce a lot of nervousness around, oh, we can do this as well as this, as well as this, as well as producing the report as well. Okay. It almost seems like sci-fi and too far-fetched.
Can we ever get to zero? Or maybe we don't need to get to zero. I know there are guardrails, but they're still putting disclaimers as well. All the vertical solution.
So whether we get to it, give me a crystal ball. I don't really know. I'm a lot more confident about getting to that state than other people, but that doesn't mean everything lawyers do. There are specific workflows that lawyers do that require light touch sort of human intervention. So for example, drafting non-disclosure agreements, it's a very standard short form contract. There's very little variability with NDAs. Yeah, we can run a agentic workflow on that. But is that going to is that innovative? Is that earth shattering? Is that going to really make a huge impact in law firms where they perhaps charge £500 to £1,000 to sort of review an NDA? No, it's not. It's whether it can do the more complex stuff, and doing the more complex stuff right now, there isn't that sort of, I feel, and what I've heard from the industry, there's not that sort of level of confidence to sort of just let the agent sort of run itself.
No, I think there is a survey as well where most of the clients wanted a digital front desk and they want to do this basic stuff on their own with the legal firm, but that's not there. Okay, so there is Harvey AI that's in billions, and there was another startup, Robin AI. Now it got swallowed by Microsoft. How do you see these two facts side by side?
So different companies and slightly different ICPs and business strategies. Harvey has done phenomenally well. It's honestly, they've come along and they've built up this brand, and they've got this fantastic PR engine sort of behind them as well. And they've sort of captivated their audience, which is corporates as well as law firms. And they did that. Timing was everything for them. I think they started before the whole November 2022 ChatGPT hype. So they got in right at the right time. So they've done like fantastically well with that. Robin was more of I think what they were doing was they were using AI, but they had sort of lawyers in the background sort of providing a managed service. They're more of a managed service offering plus AI, whereas Harvey is more AI native. And I think, and I don't want to speculate, this is just all my views and no one else's, but I think perhaps Robin didn't have the clarity in what market they were going after, which is why perhaps they sort of didn't sort of ride the same wave that Harvey are riding and Legora are riding right now. I'm sure there's other factors behind the scenes stuff that I don't know about, but that's my perception.
No, do you think like Microsoft could launch a legal product?
Yeah, absolutely.
They have infrastructure, they have everything. They could do it at scale.
But do they have proprietary data? Do they have client-specific know-how? So me if I'm paying multiple millions of pounds to my law firm, I don't want generic, like a lawyer that doesn't know my sector working on the matter. I want I want the lawyer that's been working on my file for a number of years, that knows my nuances, working on this. All that data is currently locked up in law firm document management systems. That's not tapped into. Only law firms and their clients have the ability to make that knowledge accessible to AI models in order to do something about it. Now, yes, corporates can, ultimately it's the client owns that data. So the client can take that knowledge, plug it into a Microsoft legal product, and then they've got a corporate specific AI product that they can use to rely less on external counsel, but it's the operative word being less. They will still need their lawyer to and the safety net of the professional indemnity insurance to advise on whether the output's correct or on the specifics around certain areas of law.
No, I think that is one of the reasons giants might not jump into legal. Like for Anthropic, they jumped into software world and they just killed with it, and now they are in design. But I think that is the one reason they won't go into legal, and that's the reason there is a big opportunity in legal sector. Okay, so you saw AI coming, I think, in 2018, and then you decided to walk out of your job in 2023. So what were you thinking in those 5 years?
I was learning more than anything, if I'm being honest. So I remember the very first machine learning matter that I was sort of working on. It was an acquisition of a company that I won't go into the detail, but it's around sort of voice enhancements and artificial intelligence. The company was incorporated, and 6 months later, it was on my desk, and we were just sort of doing due diligence on the company for another company to acquire them. That took me down a rabbit hole around sort of machine learning, artificial intelligence, what it was beginning to do at the time. And then sort of I developed a specialism very early on around sort of 2018, 2019. And I started to do more and more of that work. And it's sort of, it's a rabbit hole that I didn't come out of and still haven't come out of, because and I suspect I will never come out of, because there's so much potential that AI still has. We're only sort of scratching the surface right now. But that is how I sort of, that's what happened in between 2018 and 2023. I was just sort of learning. It was so fascinating as a lawyer beyond my practice to see what businesses were actually doing. And, some of the stuff, or most of the stuff I can't talk about, but it's mind blowing what they were discussing back then. We only see a glimpse of it when we're scrolling on our phones, but they're doing a lot more behind the scenes that people can't talk about. And it's world changing.
No, you are doing the same thing. So what did it cost you? Like maybe 9 years, the seat, promotion, security?
All of that, when you go into a private practice, your ambition is always to become a partner. When you become a partner, you own your own little micro business within the law firm. And that was always my trajectory. And it came a point where I actually didn't leave DLA straight away. I formulated a business plan. So I always had this sort of entrepreneurial sort of drive. So what I wanted to initially do was build something within the firm funded by the partnership, because what we were seeing was clients were asking for tools directly from the law firm more and more. They were sort of saying, look, we know Gen AI exists. What are you guys doing in the space? What are you building? And there were so many sort of ideas being thrown around. But law firms are law firms. They're not technology companies. So for a law firm to sort of actually develop something, you can't just go to the IT team that manages MS365 to then sort of start developing vector databases and that sort of stuff. You have to scale up your team, and to attract that sort of talent. What if you're actually that good as an AI engineer? Why would you go and work for a law firm? You're going to work for Meta or OpenAI or whoever it is. So they would have had to spend a whole load of money to get the right engineers in to develop products in a proper and scalable way. And I saw that it wasn't to sort of operate within a law firm. It was going to be a lot slower process. And, that led to several conversations with the then sort of co-global CEO, and I sort of laid out my business plan and what it looked like and what it could potentially do for the firm. And I came to a realization that even though I'm getting a lot of nodding heads, that change is not going to happen as quick as I want it to, or it's not going to happen as quick as the technology was developing and is developing. So I took the decision, with the firm's blessing, to sort of go and develop something and show them sort of what I was talking about.
Do you think like law firms will become technology companies soon?
I think I think if they
They
wanted
might be offering AI products.
offering AI products is not the same as becoming a technology company. I think law firms will need to become pseudo-technology companies for sure. The public are becoming more savvy to what tech can do and cannot do. And they want a combination of both. But to break a model that has been working for decades, to then all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to put, I can't remember which law firm it was, but there's a law firm recently that sort of announced a £500 million pot of money to develop their own AI. Now, I personally think that's just PR and marketing. I know very few firms, and I've knocked on a lot of law firms' doors and spoken to a lot of heads of innovations and C-suite executives to know that there are less than a handful of firms that actually have the right team to develop products in-house. And the reason why that is because they still see it as nascent technology. There's a bit of a herd mentality with law firms. So if law firm A adopts this tool, I'm going to adopt it. And I think this is where Harvey's done really well. So they've sort of played on that, and their early partnership with PwC sort of helped sort of propel them in that direction and utilize that. But there's a herd mentality, which brings a lot of nervousness around a law firm developing their own tech. But I think that is definitely the direction the smarter law firms and the more well-funded law firms are going to be headed in. I would say it's imminent. We're talking sort of over the next 2 years.
How fast it could move, or it's going to be really slow?
I think decision-making is still slow. Having said that, when ChatGPT landed in November 2022, publicly, it did not take long for innovation budgets to go from near enough nothing to sizable sort of pots of money where they can throw X million at just adopting MS Copilot and then plus some additional tools. Mm-hmm. I think the change could potentially happen relatively quickly. There just needs to be a leader in this space. At the moment, I can't really see a leader in the space. There's no law firm I can point to and say, these guys are absolutely paving the way in terms of in-house development and providing something of tangible value to their end client.
No, I think they did try, but almost 95% of the pilot failed. Okay, so what sort of firms were left behind?
The ones that don't innovate, quite simply. So the ones
in-house or adopted?
It doesn't really matter. Okay. I think whether you do it in-house or you buy in, I think the safer option is to buy in right now, purely because there's still a lot developing with AI and what it can do for legal. Do you really want to incur the risk in developing the tech? Some firms will want to, others won't. It all depends on whether they have a tangible customer for it that's willing to buy that product right here and now. But no, I think there's going to be, I think we'll sort of, there's a lot of spotlight on adoption, and there's a big question mark over adoption as well. So I can spend millions sort of developing this tech, but do I actually know that after I've sold it to the client, it's actually going to be used?
Okay, that's the form as an organization. So what AI has changed being an expert like yourself? AI has changed being an expert? You could be a really good lawyer, but if you don't have any.
Oh, so how has the role changed as a lawyer?
With the AI.
So you've gone from being the aircraft that delivers to now a pilot of the aircraft that delivers. So you've basically, I view it as a pilot. You become, as a lawyer, you take a step backwards slightly. You're now piloting a machine that can do this, that, and the other. And you've got more potential to commoditize something that you were doing very manually and reactively. So the role of not just the lawyer, but the law firm specifically has gone from simply, being reactive in work coming in, you doing it and giving the outputs to the client, to you now actually using these tools and sort of saying, hey, client ABC, you should use this tool proactively because it can, I don't know, save you this and in time and sort of enable you to sort of do what you're doing commercially a lot faster. So you're going to see the law firm going from a reactive state to a proactive state by scaling their knowledge through digital products.
And if somebody is unable to learn that thing, the AI adoption or how to operate the machine, he's going to lose the job, even though he's an expert.
Legal engineer is a phrase that sort of gets thrown about a lot. What that basically means is someone that has knowledge of legal, but also has knowledge of how to code and program and potentially train or fine-tune models in a specific way. So it's very quickly becoming a pseudo role, and it's not just for the firms hiring legal engineers specifically within the innovation teams. I think the future lawyer, it's almost going to be a given that you're going to need to have, you're going to have to be a legal engineer. And I was talking to someone from the University of Law. That module still, it hasn't sort of made its way into teaching, into the curriculum with legal practice course and other courses in the right level of detail that it needs to be. And I haven't seen it with any other law school. It's something that's going to have to be a fundamental part of that sort of the LPC or GDL or whatever sort of conversion course you're doing. But I'll give you an example of this. I have worked with a few heads of innovation. These guys are very smart. They've held consultancy positions. They've done Six Sigma and are black belts in this, that, and the other, and are change makers within large organizations. But even they are, like the law firms are sort of looking away from those sort of people and looking directly at the practitioners, the lawyers that have the same skill set as that person. So a bit of engineering, software development, project management, that sort of stuff to drive real change. So we're seeing it in recruitment circles that it's only a matter of time until it becomes like a compulsory thing that you have to do as a part of your training before you become a trainee solicitor.
I think it's quite similar like a software house, the way legal industry work. Like there is also hourly thing. You hire people, you bill them at a higher rate for them, and then there was this. Now there are so many developers, they have lost job and they are going to lose just because of this. If you don't know how to operate like Claude or these multi-agents or something, somebody else is going to take the job.
Yeah, and I think if law firms act fast enough, you're going to have sort of tech companies replacing specific things that lawyers do. So, it's at the moment we're talking about law firms plus tech. There's no reason why it can't be tech plus lawyers in the background. So we're still talking qualified lawyers and replacing specific workflows. I think that is potentially the model people will start, or the sector will start moving to if law firms don't sort of move a little bit faster to capture that market. Like already there are reports out there that are saying that just as a result of Claude Legal and ChatGPT sort of being able to answer specific sort of legal questions, people are getting a first pass review through those tools first before they go to the lawyer. Now that means that the £5,000 or £10,000 that the lawyer charged is now shrunk to £2,000 because they're sort of getting the LLM to do a bulk of it, and then they're sort of going to the lawyer to sort of say, look, can you sense check this? And they're saying that 20% of their top line revenue is going to reduce in the next 24 months alone as a result of people using Claude Legal and OpenAI. 24 months, 20%, that's a huge number. So it's in the law firm's interest to sort of capture that. And the law firms that don't capture that, I think there's going to be a mass consolidation in the market. I think there's going to, like, the smaller law firms will be acquired by the larger law firms, because now the larger law firms, it's the price point, they can offer services at a lower rate that they weren't prepared to do previously because they are able to use AI to do it much more efficiently. So me as a client, why would I go to my high street law firm where they charge £350 an hour instead of, one of the top dogs who may now also charge a lower amount, the same amount as a high street law firm.
So let's suppose law firms are not moving that fast. And let's say I have a tech company. Can I bring 2-3 lawyers, like senior lawyers, and jump into this business? Because at the core, I am a tech company and I understand the AI and these things very deeply.
I don't think
Can I bring the context and compete these firms, or
Yeah,
still would have an advantage?
the shell doesn't really matter. There are several regulatory things that you need to do to become, like, if you're providing legal advice, you need to be authorized by the
That's where senior lawyers comes.
bringing
them as partners.
Yeah, so whether you call it a tech company or whether you call it a law firm, it doesn't really matter as long as you got the right you tick the right boxes from a regulatory perspective. Yeah, you can sort of provide legal advice. The question is, are you sort of tech first or are you sort of a human lawyer first? I think a lot of people are making the shift to the former because they're seeing the direction in which the market is moving. By the market, I mean what the clients are actually demanding. Like, we're seeing there are certain corporate clients that are now specifically requesting their law firms to put at the end of their invoices that from that £100,000 you billed me, what percentage of that was AI driven? And it's a
80%.
Sorry,
80%.
Yeah, but it might not be like a billing thing, but it's more of a signal thing from the corporate client to say, look, guys, we know AI is out there. We know you're using it. We potentially want you to use more of it and be more efficient. That's why they're making them sort of put that statement at the end of their invoice so that they're consciously being more efficient and innovative in what they do.
See, as you said, you wanted to become partner and it costed you almost 9 years. Now, do you think a senior lawyer can leave the firm and partner up with a tech company and can build a tech first firm?
Yeah,
do we need that journey, that hierarchy?
I wouldn't say I've lost the years. I mean, all my experience has led to sort of what I'm doing right now. Has it all been invaluable? But
there is a shorter path now to own the stake in the firm.
There is. It's
an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. I would say it's untested, and I would perhaps even go as far as saying I'm being too optimistic by saying there's a shorter path, but there's definitely a different path, and that is tech-led, more direct, more sort of vertically integrated into specific things. The reason why boutique law firms exist is because they are highly specialized in that one thing that they do. They're experts in that. That's why boutique law firms exist. And I think what the future looks like, and it all depends on what big law does in the next few years, we could get to a scenario where you could have more tech-enabled boutique firms that do that one thing really well. So you become known as that place to go to for that particular type of work.
Okay, is there anything that everybody is getting wrong, especially in legal sector with AI and all these change?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure wrong is the right word, but it's all experimental. It genuinely is all experimental right now. They're taking a sort of suck it and see approach to it and then seeing what sort of sticks. I think now, especially with all the hindsight that we have, if I was the CEO of a law firm, what I would be doing is looking to solutions that can help me turn my internal expertise into a digital product that I can then directly sell to my clients. Now, not an easy concept to get your head around because lawyers don't really sell products to their clients. What they sell is services, and what it always has been is reactive. But then a shift needs to happen to sort of say, hey, company X, you come to us every year for this compliance review. Let me now come to you and sort of say, we've automated this process. Instead of doing it yearly, you can do it twice a year. And all you need to do is pay a subscription fee to me for this, plus some sort of retainer for me to sort of stand behind it and check the output and provide additional services around it. So it's augmented services. It's now sort of money coming in through you providing tech to your client, plus your additional, plus your additional sort of retainer. The reality of the situation is your billable fee hasn't actually gone down, because the retainer that you set up to add that additional layer of legal services on top of it is probably the same amount you would be providing if the client had gone away and used Claude Legal or OpenAI to do the work first and then come to you to sort of check it. If anything, it's going to go the other way, because now you've got a tech solution that you're not just providing to one client. I'm going to offer it to all my clients. I know I do these GDPR reviews, or I do these ESG reviews, or AI governance audits, or financial regulatory audits every year. Let me be proactive, send them all a link to this tool, and this is how much it costs to sign up. And you've got that steady revenue coming in. Yeah, for years, it's funny actually, ever since I joined the profession, one thing that lawyers have always been dreaming of is being able to charge or bill whilst they're sleeping. But they haven't been able to do that, because you come to me, I work on the matter, however many hours I work on the matter, I'll bill for it. Now, first time ever, you have the opportunity to now have a product that you can sell like any tech company on a subscription service. At the same time, you're delivering immeasurable value to the client, because you've given the client something of tangible value that they can actually use. And now you're creating that stickiness between the law firm and the client. So you know how previously we were saying a client can go to this law firm, that law firm, whoever's the cheapest, they'll go with it because the output's going to be relatively the same. Now because you've given them something of value, a tangible product, it creates that stickiness between the law firm and the client, and it makes the client want to come back to these guys for the next matter or the exciting litigation matter that's cropped up.
No, I think that is a very interesting point, and that's the reason I think legal firm does not need to worry about the billable hour. Let's suppose my billable hour is like £1,000 an hour. I am sick. I does not show up. It's zero. Right? And yeah, you can make. So what is the one thing that scares you with this all big shift?
I'd have a very different answer to that if I was still in practice. If I was in practice, I would sort of say, effectively, my role becoming diminished, my ability to go out and win work reducing significantly, because people are going more and more to sort of these LLMs to do first pass reviews, etc. And it becoming a tougher market to sort of differentiate yourself from the next lawyer. And I think that's amplified. That's always been there, but it's amplified more as a result of AI and what it can do. As a tech founder, I would say I'm a lawyer wearing a tech founder hat. And one thing I'm seeing is law firms have always been sort of beholden to all these tech tools that they use, whether it's your document management systems or your sort of your billing systems or whatever it is, or a knowledge management systems like tools that Thomson Reuters own and that sort of thing. We're talking about PLC, we're talking about LexisNexis, etc. But the reason why law firms subscribe to them is because they're the only place to go for that level of knowledge, for the latest articles, for the latest sort of precedents and all the rest of it. The irony is that most of that knowledge has come from the law firms, but we still pay those tools because everyone goes to them to use it, and it's become like a community. So they're the ones that hold the power when it comes to sort of knowledge. This is the first time law firms have the ability to break that cycle by utilizing their own internal knowledge in a very quick way and not be beholden to tech companies. But I feel like the legal sector is going down that route again. They are becoming beholden to tech companies. It's not the law firms that are driving the change and transforming legal. It's the tech companies, it's the legal tech companies that are, that are writing that narrative for the law firms. And as a lawyer, that is my biggest worry for the profession, it shouldn't be the tech company that's driving that change. It should very much be the law firm, the actual experts, the actual people that have to stand behind the advice and provide the legal services.
It's too late for that.
I don't think so. I think we still have
Now they're dependent on tech companies, so no.
I think they're still, as I say, I think they're still sort of experimenting. Yes, they've spent big money subscribing to the Harveys and the Goras of the world, but I don't think it's too late to actually spend some proper money and capture internal knowledge in a way that they can make infinitely scalable. And what you're doing there is you're effectively future-proofing the success of your law firm, because if you do that and you adopt your own AI, you're creating your own corporate memory. And that corporate memory is the firm's entire IP.
Okay, so both of us went to university, degrees, then employment for a few years, and then turned into startup owners. What our kids' career would look like, let's say in 10 years or 20 years.
Again, crystal ball. But
you can speculate, it's fine.
That's a worry. That is genuinely a worry, because the level of change we're sort of seeing, it's so rapid that the whole, hey, why don't you go into law conversation when I was sort of 18? Because it's a steady career. It's, you're adding tremendous value to your clients. It's good money, stability, blah, blah, blah. I don't think I think that sort of falls away in a big way with sort of all the change that's happening right now. But the furthest I've got to with that thought process, and I often discuss this, I have this argument with my wife, is that I don't really want my kids to go to university, whereas my wife does want them to go to university, because she wants them to have that wider, not just the education, but the wider life experience of doing laundry and making your own food and all that sort of stuff. Whereas I sort of sit here thinking, why are we sort of racking up a debt of 50 to 60 grand right now? It could be more than at the end of a 3-year course that you spend years sort of paying back, and you've paid sort of so much interest on it as well. Why don't we go down the apprenticeship route, hone your skill? So you know how with lawyers, you go through 3 years of university, then you go to 2 years training contract, 1 year legal practice course, 2-year training contract, and then you qualify. Is there a shorter route to that process? Law firms are now started offering apprenticeships. So you don't have to do the 2-year trainee contract. You can go straight from, I think it's from college, you do 6 years as an apprenticeship directly with the law firm. By the end of it, you will have more direct experience than any sort of new trainee joining to do a 2-year training contract. I think that's the way forward. Specializing early, developing your skills early on, and getting into a particular profession.
I think that was same thing for the software. Like, I know there are some people, they say, oh, I like coding, but no, you don't. Nobody likes finding about 3 nights in a row. It was all money. It was steady, decent career.
Yeah.
And now it's changing differently.
Yeah, right.
But I think that the value of the human experience is going to skyrocket. Maybe somebody is going to lose a job as a taxi driver to Waymo, but maybe that person can become musician, comedian, or anything that involves basic human experience. That would be the path. I think so. AI can do the dishes. We can do the podcast. That would be a good thing. But there is a big collateral damage coming. And I think giants, government, and vertical builders need to take the responsibility. The way you are taking your lawyers, your clients through this shift.
And how quick do you think that shift is going to happen then?
In my opinion, it's coming really fast, but let's say 20 years maybe.
So, I mean, you're more plugged into the wider market.
Software is flat now. What Opus is doing right now, senior, I don't know. Opus is 10x engineer now. In coding world, it has gone too far.
In terms of expertise or speed?
Expertise, speed, execution, everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so this is Inference Podcast. And the reason this podcast exists, my products exist, your products exist because of the Inference.
Yeah.
And now this is the last question. I want you to give me your inference what does the business of law looks like in 5 years or 10 years, and how big KCI AI in that?
So in a nutshell, we are a revenue generator for law firms. So our clients are law firms, and what we effectively do is enable them to everything I've been talking about, basically capture their knowledge, internal knowledge, their USP, plug it into pre-built workflows. So there's specific workflows that lawyers do, and then enable them to make that directly client-facing and available to their client, so that their client can sort of use. That's our whole thesis, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. I think the business of law is going to look very different to what it is now. Right now, what do lawyers do to win work? So I jump on LinkedIn, I will showcase my expertise. I will, or my law firm will do it on my behalf and say, oh, Vipul worked on this matter for this client, and the client achieved X, Y, and Z, in the hope that somebody else, a company in that sector, will come across that LinkedIn post and see what we've done and sort of reach out to me and engage my services, reactive to reactive. I think the business of law is now shifting to empowering lawyers to make specific tech solutions available to their clients. If you look at what the client wants, what does your client want as a law firm? They want quality advice. They want your professional indemnity insurance standing behind it, and they want lower fees. They're the three things that the client wants from legal service. So you, as a lawyer, doing what you've been doing, say, hey, my hourly rate is £1,000 an hour. I'm amazing because of X, Y, and Z. I think that sort of narrative is decreasing more and more. I think now it's a case of sort of just going the other way and saying, looking at profit. Law firms are not really good at measuring profitability or efficiency. They look at utilization, they look at recoverability, so how much of that they've been able to bill on the client, but they very seldom look at efficiency or profitability. It's about looking at how profitable a particular matter has been and scaling that up. Can I then turn that into an automated process that's less reliant on a single lawyer's knowledge or a group of lawyers' knowledge, and it's all sort of inbuilt into that corporate memory that I mentioned earlier, and making that and offering that en masse. If you are able to achieve that in the next 18 months, 24 months, I think you will have absolutely taken the lead on making that business of law problem a sort of like a inbound sort of sales process rather than an outbound sales process. And I think that's the whole shift the market is seeing with the first wave of legal tech and the second wave of legal tech.
So law firms will also be reselling the Inference, the custom workflows.
Yeah,
What is the moat now? What is the
data?
difference? Data, that's it. Context, knowledge, judgment.
Yeah, so that all boils down to data. So context can be distilled into data. So I've got 3 of these clients that are tech clients in the UK that do this particular service. But then I've got other tech clients that do exactly the same service, but they're the big boys, and their risk profile is slightly different to these guys. So that nuance can get captured into a particular workflow. So, I mean, that's exactly what we do with Casey. So it's not just a generic tool that has the same output for everything. You put that particular nuance in for that particular client that then gets made available to that end client. That nuance is captured, and all you're then doing is compounding on that sort of any updates to that nuance that the AI needs to know to adjust how it analyzes something for that client or how it sort of outputs something for that client. Proprietary data is king here. And I'll probably say infrastructure as well. So you asked me about build versus buy. I think it's infrastructure plays a massive role. Whether you build that infrastructure yourself within a law firm or buy it in, that infrastructure has to be very adaptable to the changes that are coming down the line. You can't just sort of say, buy one tool and rely on that tool to be amazing for the next 2-3 years. But you've got to have the right, to tag the data in the right way for the AI to capture it easily and turn it into something. Because one thing we know for sure, and what we've seen over the last 3-4 years, is all of that sort of ecosystem is changing so rapidly that the only thing that has been the common denominator is the infrastructure and the underlying data.
Any advice for the students who are doing a law degree right now? Quick advice. What they can do at personal level, and usually what they can do.
I think just vibe code. I think just take one specific thing that you understand lawyers do on a day-to-day basis that perhaps hasn't been sort of captured already by the legal texts that are out there, and just vibe code something, iterate on it, get a deeper understanding of what framework you're using, what coding language you're using. It doesn't mean I need to be able to code in Python. It doesn't mean that I need to understand React inside out, but I need a high level of understanding of what these things are for me to then sort of actually go and build something for my future employer, whether that's a corporate or a law firm.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.